Okay, wanted to take two. My son woke up and made it so that I had to stop my last recording, and I'm not one who doesn't tend to do everything all at once. At some point, I may find the need to do that, but I'm not there at this point. I was saying in the first run through that I started to do on this that I don't necessarily always count perfectly on my notes. And I also don't count on my titles necessarily perfectly. That I try to count on them as much as I'm able. But the point is that sometimes that's not something that happens. So today, I'm talking about objectivity and reason. But there's actually a third thing that has to be considered, a third pillar in this set of considerations, and it is the idea of absolute fact or absolute truth, right? I'm going to go ahead and read a little of my notes. I said objectivity and reason are technically tied together. That said, there are ways in which that's not necessarily the case. We have to introduce a third concept to help to explain that third concept as absolute fact or absolute truth. Bringing it into play helps to explain my unwillingness to generally accept the idea of objectivity or objectiveness. Hello and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Saturday, the 30th of January of 2021. Welcome to everybody who's coming here from Rumble, who's listening to me on the podcast, and who's watching on YouTube as well. Again, the subject of today's little piece is objectivity and reason. And let's without further ado dive in on the facts or the ideas. So I wanted to say basically this. You have a choice. You have to decide whether or not there is absolute fact or absolute truth. I personally cannot see a way that you can decide such a thing is not real or true. I can't see a way. Why? Because if gravity pulls you down when you trip and you fall on your face, you are subject, at least on this earth, to gravity, right? Maybe there are places that's not as true, but in the place where you are, in the Galilean coordinates where you currently exist on this planet, you are pulled down and you fall to ground. And that's whatever gravity actually is, whether it's a force or property or whatever it is, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to answer that necessarily. I have my suspicions, but I'm not absolutely smart enough to answer that. You will deal with that, what I would call absolute truth. And I hold that there's higher order absolute truth, and that higher order absolute truth can be expressed by looking at what God says about the universe. Obviously, if you're not a Christian or if you're not any kind of believer at all, that will not make very much sense to you. It still does not, in my opinion, dispense with the idea of absolute truth. Why do I bring up absolute truth? Because without absolute truth, objectivity is, in my opinion, largely impossible. I have a couple of little definitions that I've made that I'm going to put up on the screen for you. The first of those is the one for objectivity. Objectivity is, according to a search of my favorite search engine, DuckDuckGo, existing independence of or external to the mind, actual or real, based on observable phenomena, empirical. Now, I want to say about that I'm not perfectly in agreement with that idea. Like I say, it isn't necessarily that you can observe it, right? It's whether or not something is true without regard to your particular slant or inability to properly perceive it. All right, now I'm going to take that down. Next, we're going to put up our little slide on reason. Reason, as you'll see in the slide, is the basis or motive for an action, description, or conviction, a declaration made to explain or justify action or action, decision, or conviction. And that right there, if you actually listen to what that definition says, particularly the second, should kind of show you why objectivity and reason are not really directly tied to one another. The truth is, as I say, objectivity is tied to absolute fact or absolute truth. And so if you believe in objectivity, you should realize that nobody's truly objective because nobody is party to absolute truth other than God, as far as I know. So that's not something that you can really readily say that anybody is actually tied to or has access to. So objectivity is kind of broken to begin with, and that means reason is broken. But the interesting thing about it is if you can declare something to be true based on things that you claim are fact or truth or whatever, it doesn't necessarily matter if they're objectively valid, right? Those things are your basis for your supposed reason. And that means reason too can be broken away from objectivity. That's why you have the two separate ideas, right? So reason, if it's not based on objectivity, is bad. Objectivity, if it's not based on absolute truth, is bad. Both of them are bad if that's the case. And the problem is, since you can't base your attempts at objectivity on absolute truth, obviously you can't say with any surety that what you believe, that what you count the objective reality is in fact that. All it takes is, I used to tell people this. You ready? Watch this now. Wow, my perception just changed. I'm a lot blurrier now, right? I'm going to put my glasses back on. Okay, so I took my glasses off for those of you on the podcast, and that's why my perception changed. Further, I know that I'm red-green deficient in terms of my ability to see colors. And what that means is I don't necessarily see colors like other people do. And this is an important realization because it means my perception and your perception don't match. Whose perception is correct? Well, I can make some arguments about that. But what I have to say is, if my perception is broken, the chances are pretty good yours is too. And I'll go a step further with that. Considering that the physical is only one way that perception can be broken, and probably the more important is that which is going on in the mental realm and the spiritual realm and so forth. The reality is the idea that you're being objective is highly questionable. And let's make sure I make this clear. I'm not just talking about you. I'm talking about everybody. Me too. I already can tell you that my perception is broken. I already can do that. And therefore I can tell you that I can't work out from objectivity, and as a result, my reasoning is broken. And it's one of the reasons that I tend to want to listen to other people, because I know my objectivity is potentially broken. So if you can present things to me that show me how my perception is incorrect, if you can present things to me that show me that I'm not being objective on some basis, how can I but at least consider what it is that you're saying, whether I come to the conclusion what you're saying is correct or incorrect? Right, that's pretty obvious. This is all pretty important stuff. But what this means is, when people talk about the idea of objectivity, you'll excuse me, but I generally go, no, not really. That's not really a thing. Objective news reporting is not really a thing. And I'll go a step further, like I say, inasmuch as people are probably correct in the conclusions that they come to when they reason out a given situation, or when they empirically observe something and find how things work, that does not mean they understand what it is that they're dealing with. And this is one, in fact, of my problems with the scientific community, is this tendency to assume that because my model better explains the world, I've got it right. That's not necessarily true, not by any stretch of the imagination. All of this relates to any number of things that are going on in the current moment, and one of them is the idea that people who don't agree with me need to be re-educated. They don't need to be re-educated. They need to listen to what I'm saying, or they don't need to, but it would help them to listen to what I'm saying and either strengthen their own positions or accept mine, or some hybrid of the two, right, as a result. The point here is that I don't believe objectivity is or ever was a thing, whether it's in news reporting, media of any kind or anywhere else. And I don't believe that reason on the part of mankind is perfect. I think you can move towards perfection, as I've said before, but I don't think anybody necessarily lives there. The result is, it's totally within your rights to disagree with what I say, with what I believe, and so forth. That's totally within your right. And I'm not going to try and take that from you or re-educate you or indoctrinate you in some way to get you to believe what I believe. That said, I am going to continue to express my opinions and my views on things, and I'm going to hope that you'll take the time to listen and try to be dispassionate and to look and see what I'm saying, to step away from your preconceptions, and hopefully I can do the same when I look at the things that you're saying as well. All right, I've come to the end of my time today. I need to wrap things up. It is, as I say, the 30th of January of 2021, and it is Saturday today. I hope you're having a good day. Hope your weekend is going well. Again, for you Sabbath observers there, hope you're having a good Sabbath. I think it's sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday is what I think I finally figured out, as I recall, with regard to the Sabbath. I was questioning that yesterday. And I looked at that at some time in the past, but I wasn't sure. All right, so anyway, yet again, I'm going to go ahead and try and get another daily summation out tomorrow. That will be the 31st of January 2021, and it will be Sunday, and hopefully we'll see you then. I hope, like I say, you're having a good day. Hope you're having a good weekend, and I hope that it works out, that things are working out well for you in this new year. All right, as I say, I think it's about time for me to wrap this up. That being said, I hope you have a good day, and hopefully we will see you tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Saturday, the 30th of January of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.